Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final CM Hangout of the 2015-2016 school year. I'm your host, Lisa Hendey, and joining me today are two wonderful friends from CatholicMom.com, two of our fantastic contributors, and we're so happy to be joining you today to spotlight one of them, to spotlight the joy of reading, and mostly just to hang out with you, our listening and reading and viewing community. Again, my name is Lisa Hendey. I'm the founder and editor of CatholicMom.com, and joining me today are my friends, my co-host for today, Tiffany Walsh. Hey, Tiffany.
Hey, Lisa. How are you?
I'm awesome. And then also with us is our special guest for today, joining us on her very first Hangout, but hopefully not her last, Lisa Hess. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Lisa. Nice to officially meet you.
I know. Have we never met in real life in person?
No.
Oh, well, what a treat to be able to be with you today. I feel like I know you because I read, you're in my brain at least once a week, Lisa on CatholicMom.com. So with the great work that you do on Style Savvy, we love that feature. We'll talk about that more in a few minutes. But I thought it would be fun just because we may have some folks that are joining us for the very first time for both of you to just briefly introduce yourself and share how you got started with CatholicMom.com. So Tiffany, I know it's been a little over a year, right? Since not quite, since you joined us, right?
Yeah,
so,
coming up on a year.
Since a crazy lady walked up to you at a conference and said, please.
Yeah, I met you. It's coming up on a year that we met at the Catholic New Media Conference, and I have to say, Lisa, it makes me kind of like melancholy and sad because I had such a great time, and it's like, has it been that long already?
I know.
It's just one of those,
isn't it?
Reminders of how fleeting life is, and it was just so wonderful to see all of those friends, and I'm sad I won't be seeing them this June, but I met you in person there, and I got started with Catholic Mom, I believe in August of 2015. So coming up on a year, but I am a librarian and a wife and mother. I've got two children, and I work at a university library. I'm a teaching librarian, which I really, really love. And I am as you might imagine from my profession, a voracious reader, and I am a blogger too, so I like writing. I was very much intrigued by our topic for today since we have somebody who is a published writer with us, so I'm very excited to get her feedback on how she got started.
I love that, and I could talk library with you for forever and ever, so I'm so glad, Tiffany, that you're here, and we need to have another conference so I can get back in person.
Yes, we do.
I love that. So Lisa Hess, tell us how you got started with CatholicMom.com.
It was actually through a conference also. It was the Catholic Writers Online Conference, and I took Sarah Reinhardt's blogging class. And I was blogging but wanted to learn how to get better at it. And actually, there was a trick that I learned in her class that I still use when I get stuck. And the opportunity to blog for Catholic Mom came up via Tech Talk. And I was a little bit out of my element because technology does not come naturally to me. But I talked to a couple of my friends who are techies. I'm like, do you think I can do this? And they said, yes, you can do this. And Sarah was very patient and understanding. So I was doing Tech Talk contributions for a while. And then Barb was reading my organization blog and asked if I would start doing Style Savvy. It started as a back-to-school feature last summer. Excuse me, I'm fighting a cold. And asked if I would do the back-to-school feature, which then morphed into Style Savvy. Yeah, so that's been, I don't even know, it's been several years that I've been doing.
Oh my goodness, I know I should have looked that date up, but
I should have as well.
I love hearing these stories of how new friends come along, and it's just, I tell you, one of my favorite things about the Hangout is so often I admire your writing for all of our writers. I admire you across the screen, and so be able to connect like this with your face and to tell you how much your work means to me and to our readers, it's really a true joy. So before we jump into the meat of our interview with Lisa Hess, I wanted to actually ask kind of a toss-up question. We like to do these at the beginning just for fun, and the one, since we're talking about novels today, I just wanted to ask you, what is your favorite novel that you've read, either recently or of all time, or and we'll say we have to disqualify anything that we wrote ourselves. So Lisa, jump in there first with yours.
It would have to be To Kill a Mockingbird. And I bought the sequel or whatever it was called last summer. It's still sitting on my shelf collecting desk because I tried to stay away from all of the reviews and was not successful. I still hope to read it, but my daughter, I read it in high school, and then my daughter read it when she was in high school, and I read it along with her, and so many things that I did not even come close to appreciating the first time I read it. Just the beauty of the prose, the characterization. It's just an absolute work of art. And it's funny because when a friend of mine who's a librarian was giving me feedback on my first book, she was sort of hedging a little, and I said, look, To Kill a Mockingbird is a 5-star book. I don't have illusions that I've written To Kill a Mockingbird.
Yeah. Well, that's a great one, and I think to be able to enjoy it with your daughter, too, is really special, you know, to be able to have that perspective, too. Tiffany, you're surrounded by books all the time. Do you have a favorite?
You know, I wish...
Take one book to a deserted island.
No, well, you know, I really can't say that there's a specific title, and I wish I could say it was a great work of literature like Lisa just mentioned. I read a lot of just cozy fiction, and I don't remember any of the titles, but I love that type of escapism. You know, you go to, within the characters of the book, you go to the knitting shop or the quilting shop, and you're surrounded by this community of people. You just get absorbed into their setting for a week or however long it takes you to read the book, and I just read, I mean, hundreds of books like that, and so I can't say I can pick one out, but that's the type of fiction that I really love reading.
Are you a Kindle reader, or are you?
Yes, I'm a Kindle reader.
Kindle reader, and actually on a Kindle or on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can't help but the geek in me has to ask you: are you going to get the new Oasis, or are you tempted by it?
I don't know. My Paperwhite, my current Kindle, because of course I've been through several, they get heavy use, so is not quite a year old. So I'm still holding out and seeing what the reviews are, what they're going to do with that, before I allow myself to be tempted.
Good, like a prudent consumer. Like Lisa Hendey, who's usually like, "What? There's a new gadget? I must have it."
Shiny, yes.
We won't talk about that, but I've been watching it too, and thankfully it sold out so quickly that you can't actually get it right now. So that
right.
I was actually in the store, which shall go nameless, debit card in hand, ready to purchase one, and it was not available, which is a good thing because that made me step back and say, Lisa, you know, do you really, really need this additional gadget? So she says that she's surrounded by so many screens. You know, I'm wondering if you've ever read any of Catherine Valentine's books. Have you ever heard of Catherine Valentine?
That sounds very familiar. What is her?
So if you're mentioning like
cozy, yeah.
So I don't know that she would call herself that, but one of the very earliest things that I did with CatholicMom.com way back in like 2001 or 2002 was to start a book club because I was reading books by this author named Catherine Valentine, who is a Catholic, I'd say Jan Karen kind of an author, and so she wrote about you know, this kind of cozy series, but in a Catholic setting.
Oh, this is sounding familiar. Do you know any of her titles?
Oh,
we're gonna look it up right now, Lisa.
Oh yeah, look at Amazon because I'm sure she's on there, and you'll see my book reviews. Because actually, I remember that one of the very first times we did a book club on Catholic Mom was with one of Catherine's books. I had found it at the bookstore, and I actually like sent her a little email and said, I think I want to have a book club, and could we use your book? I mean, not realizing back then of all the.
Oh, I've read these. A Miracle for St. Cecilia's.
That's it. Yes.
And Grace Will Lead Me Home. I'm pretty sure. Oh, it's a series. Yeah. Oh, and The Haunted Rectory. I think I've read that too.
We love you, Catherine Valentine.
Yes, lovely.
Also, well, that's so good. And I think one of the greatest joys that we have on the website is really being able to shine the light on great writers of our own, but also to help this to spread the word about books. And as we're coming up to summer reading, we thought it would be really fun to have really a hangout that would just deal with the joy of snuggling up with a good book, whether that's with your kids or for yourself, and especially for you. I think a lot of moms out there, we think about, oh, summer reading and getting those, you know, books for our little ones, and we do want to encourage that, but we want to encourage you with your reading too. And I've been listening to this audiobook over the last couple of weeks called Deep Work. Have either of you heard of this book?
No, I haven't.
I really recommend it, but it really talks a lot about how, as a society, we're kind of like distracted in our work, and that setting aside time for daily reading is a real big thing. So, in anticipation of having Lisa on, I was, oh yes, I got to get back to my own reading, and I tend to bounce back and forth between Kindle and Audible these days. So those are two favorite formats. So, and I get to read a lot of books actually before they come out because we're constantly asked to endorse books now. But enough about that. I want to turn now to our wonderful guest for today. Lisa Hess is a transplanted Jersey girl who's lived in Pennsylvania for most of her life, which is maybe why she doesn't sound like a Jersey girl to us. Lisa is the author of 2 nonfiction books, Acting Assertively and Diverse Divorce, 18 Situations, Stories for Use with Children of Divorce. And she's written 2 novels. Her novels are Casting the First Stone and Chasing a Second Chance. And you can find Lisa blogging not only at CatholicMom.com, but also at the Porch Swing Chronicles and Organizing by Style. And don't worry, because we're going to have links for all of those things in our show notes for you. But Lisa, welcome to the CM Hangout.
Thank you. It's really fun to be here.
I have to ask you, in your writing, which came first, the fiction or the nonfiction?
The nonfiction. When I first started writing seriously for publication, I wrote articles for magazines, and I still do that from time to time, as much as I can. Usually that's a summertime pursuit. I work as an adjunct professor during the school year, so in the summer I'm listening to you ladies talking about reading, and Tiffany, I'm jealous of anybody who reads voraciously, because I used to, and it seems to be the thing that gets cast aside and doesn't happen. So that's one of my goals for the summer. I just was planning things out and thought, I'm reading. I'm going to keep track of my reading to make sure that I'm actually doing that. But writing also gets to be first during the summer. And I started out writing these articles and took actually a class through the Institute of Children's Literature, and that's what formed the Stories for Diverse Divorce. But I worked as an elementary school counselor for 27 years. So the first 2 books came out of my experiences with the kids. Acting Assertively, was actually something that arose out of the classroom lessons that I did with 4th and 5th graders. And Diverse Divorce was my first attempt at doing fictional type pieces, and I did them around something I knew. I did little short stories that have activities that go with them for counselors and teachers to use as they work with kids of divorce. That was one of my favorite populations to work with when I was working as a school counselor. And then the fiction came much, much later.
So I was very intrigued by the concept behind your 2 books, and I noted on your Amazon page that you wrote a book, you wrote your first book, and you didn't necessarily intend for it to have a sequel, but the response to it was so good that you wrote a sequel, and now you're thinking about writing a 3rd book because the characters have resonated with your audience so well. So how did you come up with the idea for your fiction work, and could you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. Actually, Marita in Casting the First Stone was the first character to emerge in that book. And it came out of a story that I had written for Diverse Divorce, where the editor and I couldn't quite agree on the story, and we ended up actually agreeing to remove it from the book. So that story centered around a young lady who had been born out of wedlock. And I thought, what if I wrote a story from the perspective of her mother? And that was sort of the jumping off point for Marita. And I always develop my characters first. In fiction, we talk about plotters and pantsers, and plotters are the people who know exactly what's going to happen from the beginning to the end before they sit down to write anything, and pantsers are people like me who fly by the seat of their pants and make it up as they go along. So I start with a cast of characters, and then the story emerges from there. So the first person to emerge was Marita, and then Jim, and then I thought about what the life story was going to be and what was going to be the driving force behind the conflict. And so Jim being married and now being a stand-up guy, which he was not originally, or allegedly a stand-up guy, the readers have to decide that. Got a lot of negative feedback about Jim. Now that he looks really good on paper and he seems to be a stand-up guy and wants to be a dad, the question that I wanted to resonate through the book is, what does it take to be a good parent? And can you just look at someone's life circumstances and determine, based on that outside piece, whether or not they should be the parent who has main custody. So I sort of seem to keep looping back to the divorce theme, which is odd. My parents have been married for more than 50 years and are probably the best example of a good, loving married couple that I know, but here I am writing consistently about divorce. So.
Well, it makes sense with your counseling background, since working with the children of divorce really touched you in that way to help them. Yeah. And I really like how you focused, there's a focus in the description of the book on, so now we have Marita, and she has her daughter, and he's coming into the picture now. I believe she's a young teenager, right, the child in the book, and he had never been in her life.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I just said she's 12 in the first book, and she turns 13 between the end of the first one, the beginning of the second one. So, yep, young teen for the second.
Right, right. And so he's suddenly in the picture and wanting to be involved, but he hasn't been, so we can understand why Marita would have concerns about this. But I love how you wove in his new wife. So, I think you would look at that situation and think, wow, she would be somewhat unsympathetic because we're sympathizing with Marita, right? And her daughter. And so now you have this other female character, but then you bring in her story and how those two women interact with each other. I really thought that was a lovely angle and so interesting. So much good fodder in there for a good story.
Well, thank you. My goal in writing it in alternating point of view like that was exactly what happened with you, Tiffany, which is I wanted the reader to not know, by the middle of the book, I didn't want it to be easy for the reader to know who they were rooting for. Because at the beginning, you start out and we meet Marita first, and Marita's the biological mother, and she's been doing this on her own. So she becomes very sympathetic despite what might not be the best life circumstances. And then once you meet Angel, like you said, you're prepared not to like this person, and Angel is sort of hard not to like. So by the middle of the book, you're kind of looking at them. I'm hoping the reader's looking at them and going, I don't know how I want this to turn out. So that's hopefully what keeps people turning the pages.
Oh, yeah. Love that. I just love that concept. I think that's brilliant. So it makes perfect sense that you wrote a sequel featuring Angel.
Yep. And I really did not intend, and I wish I could say, oh, I sold millions of copies and that's why I'm writing a sequel, but it was really more just a handful of readers who kept saying to me, you are writing another one, aren't you? And the first couple of times I laughed it off. I was like, no, this is it. And after about the 14th or 15th time, I said, well, yeah, I guess I am now. And then as I was editing the second one, the characters are on my shoulders saying, you know what should happen next? You know what should happen next? So you wanted to know how a writer's mind works. It's actually a little frightening because, yes, I do I don't actually hear voices, but the characters definitely have opinions and directions of their own. So
they're very vocal.
Do you have a preference between fiction and nonfiction, which you feel more passionately about when you're writing it?
I think for me it centers more on the topic. And with fiction, if I'm in love with my characters and I usually get to the point where I am, that's what makes it easier to keep going. I think I do a lot of short nonfiction with magazine articles. So that part I enjoy, and I like the immediate feedback that comes with that. I think I like them both for different reasons. The fiction, I get caught up with the characters. And they really do tell me what's going to happen next. I mean, there were a couple things. There's a scene in the second book with Charlie that was foreshadowing in the back of my mind for a while, and I kept saying, no, that can't happen. No, that can't happen. And Tiffany, if you've read it, you probably know which scene I'm talking about. But there's she was insistent that this was where she was going to go as a young teen, and it was not my intention to do that. So the characters pulling me down the path is part of what I like about fiction, but when I do short nonfiction, I like the immediate payoff, the immediate reward, because writing a novel is a long process. Did I answer that, Lisa, or did I dodge it?
No, I mean, you did, and I think it's a great answer. And I mean, first of all, thank you for teaching me that I'm a pantser. Is it a pantser? Is it a
pantser? Yep.
A pantser? Yeah. Because not only do I have flying by the seat of my pants and characters talk to me, but I also have animals talking to me. So we're crazy. Yeah, and is your work, is your fiction self-published, Lisa?
The first book was published by a small publishing house called Lighthouse Publishing in the Carolinas. And I decided I wanted to go down the self-publishing path for the second one. was doing a lot of reading about self-publishing, and one of the best arguments that I heard for it was, I think it's Scott Birkin, who said that he writes a lot of things that aren't really in demand for traditional publishers, and he wants this to be a career. So if he wants it to be a career, he feels like he should know both sides of the business. And I thought that was a really intelligent way to look at things. And since I already had a built-in audience, this was a good place to take that leap of faith and see if I could actually make something of it with the self-publishing piece. It was scary. I had a lot of help, which was, I don't think the book would have gotten out there if I didn't. My sister is a copy editor, and so she did all of the detail-oriented grunt work. I'm good at the basics of things, but when it comes down to that level of detail, I don't have patience for it. So she took care of that for me. And then I have a friend who is a writer and an illustrator, and she put my cover together and did my interior design. So without my friend Laurie Edwards and my sister Lori Kramer, that second book would not exist, and self-publishing would not have been an option, because I'd have gotten bogged down in the technology. So it's interesting to have experienced it from both places. From a promotional perspective, there's not a huge difference between small publishing house and self-publishing.
So do you have a preference, because you have experienced both models? And I'm interested in this because my husband is a budding fiction writer, and he's been going through the process of trying to procure an agent, and just, it's a very tedious process because you get a lot of rejection. And so having experienced both of these models, I've been telling him so maybe we should look more into self-publishing. What are the pros and cons of each?
The biggest pro with self-publishing is that you have 100% control. So the biggest con with self-publishing is you have 100% responsibility. Mm-hmm. So if something goes wrong, it's you, and it's all you, and there's no dodging it or blaming anybody else or saying, well, if only my cover designer had, well, if only. No, it's all you. You're the writer, you're the project supervisor, you're the promotional person. Having good technological skills, I think, is really necessary to successfully self-publish. I would definitely self-publish again, but I'm right now in the process of revising a novel that's been sitting in the drawer for about 7 years, and it's very, very long and needs to be cut back. And I'm considering trying to get representation for that. I had representation for casting the first stone. Lovely person, we got along personally very well, but the business model piece of it, we weren't on the same page. So you're looking at it from kind of both things, Tiffany. You're looking at what level of support do you want? If you were going the traditional publishing route, somebody else is taking control of a lot of pieces, but when they take control, you lose a little bit of control and give up a little bit of control. So if it comes down to your opinion of the front cover versus the publisher's opinion of the front cover, you lose. It goes to the person who's spending the money to put the cover together and pay the cover designer. However, they also bring with it a high level of expertise in the industry and can say, well, I'm saying this because I think this is the cover that's going to sell.
Right.
When it comes to the marketing and promotion piece, for most first authors, unless it's a huge book that somebody's really expecting to take off, a lot of that level of work ends up being almost the same in both situations. Now, I haven't worked with a traditional large publisher. If I were published by Penguin, for example, I'm sure I would have had a lot more in terms of freebies and the kinds of things that come your way when you're working with a company that's got a lot of money. I published with a small publishing house, so it was on a kind of a lower level. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm rambling.
No. That's not rambling. It's really helpful information.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Catholic Writers online conference, but I'm wondering, are you going to the live conference this summer in Schaumburg?
Probably not. It's one of the things that's on my list of things I want to do, but my daughter graduates from high school on Thursday, and this is the last summer home as we know it with her. And so everything this summer revolves around my daughter's schedule. I would like to be here if she's here. If she makes plans, I'll make plans, but I decided this is not the summer to be making mom plans. But I would love to go back to the online conference. I somehow miss it a lot of the time, or it's just at a time when I can't keep up with all the workshops, and I would love to go to the live one of these days. So it won't be this summer, but I'm hoping for a future summer, partly because I want to meet all the people from Catholic Mom that I'm talking to online and talking to via email.
We should have a Catholic Mom Conference.
That would be fun.
You need to organize that.
Because you have nothing else to do, Lisa.
Right.
I'm showing my Facebook friends here. While we're live streaming on Google Plus, I'm also live streaming on my phone to my Facebook friends, and I'm showing them my boxes around my absolutely crazy. And I'm using that as my current excuse for why there's not a CatholicMom.com conference. I'm moving actually, what's the date today? Is the 24th? Yeah, so on June 3rd, my new address will be in Los Angeles. So
wow. Exciting!
You never know what might happen for good old CatholicMom.com. So this time always goes so quickly, and we're coming down to the end of our time. I wanted to say for people that are viewing this, that are interested in writing, and let's face it, all of us, I think, have a story inside of us to share, that the Catholic Writers Guild is such a phenomenal organization, and it's really something that I owe an extreme debt of gratitude to the Catholic Writers Guild, to the early leadership. I don't even want to say names because I'll forget somebody, but if you're someone who has a passion for writing, whether or not you've ever been published, you need to join the Catholic Writers Guild. The membership fee is very inexpensive, and the rewards that you will reap from not only professional development, but also, I would say, very genuine spiritual support around you is really worth any investment that you make. So we'll have links in our show notes so that you can check out the Catholic Writers Guild. I remember the first time I went to a writers conference, it was at an event down in Southern California, and I can remember Greg dropped me off, and it took a lot of coaxing for me to actually get out of the car, because I kept thinking to myself, I'm not a real writer. I'm a blogger, and there's going to be all these people there, and they're going to have like typewriters with them, and their books. They're just going to like have big bags of books that they publish, and I was a scribbler at that point, and I remember by the end of that day thinking, I am a writer, you know what? And all of us have the capacity to share our voice. And so you read the work of many who have not yet formally been published, writing each week on CatholicMom.com. But if you're interested in writing, definitely check out the Catholic Writers Guild. So Tiffany, curious, as you head into summer, what are you guys going to be doing this summer around your house?
So we're planning a short family weekend getaway, which will be lovely. We haven't really, our daughter has just turned 5 last week, and it seems like we've made an excuse for all of these years. So it would just be too hard to travel with the kids. I mean, we really can't say that anymore because our kids are now 10 and a half and 5. So we're going to take a little road trip, which should be very, very fun, the 4 of us. And besides that, we're really homebodies, so like getting away, like I just mentioned, is a really big deal for us. So we just enjoy our time sitting out on the porch with cool beverages. We don't have central air conditioning in our house, so.
Oh my gosh!
But we live in Western New York, so you don't really need central air conditioning for most of the year. So, but in the summertime, we like to be out reading, enjoying conversation. The kids are very much looking forward to being off from school, and our daughter will be starting kindergarten in the fall. So, like you were saying, Lisa, with your daughter treasuring that summertime with her, I'm thinking about that too, because she's in pre-K right now, but a couple hours a day, very low time commitment there, and now all of a sudden she'll be in full day school in the fall. So it is like a precious summer here coming up, and just looking forward to lots of family time. We have to convince our kids to move away from the television and play a board game or do something else. It takes a little coaxing, but we're old school like that. My husband and I, we really like the non-screen time. So we try to come up with things that they will also enjoy that we can do while you actually interact, with each other, as opposed to the tablet or the television or whatever the case may be.
Lisa, does your daughter already have a college picked out for next year?
She does, and a lot of the summer plans here are going to revolve around that. She's going to Quinnipiac University in Connecticut, so she'll be 5 hours away from home. It's a beautiful, beautiful campus. She and I went up. We visited last summer as a family, and then she and I went up again in March and looked at it, and something just kind of clicked, and actually clicked for both of us. That I, as mom, left there thinking, okay, if this is where she goes, I'm going to be okay with this. So she's going up in 2 weeks. Well, she's leaving the day after graduation, to go to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina with 3 of her friends, which is the longest drive any of them have ever taken. So prayers would be appreciated. I'll be fine once she gets there. It's the road trip piece that's making me nervous.
Thank
And then
goodness
she comes back.
for cell phones and stuff that she can help you along the way.
Then she comes back, and it's not too long till we go up for her orientation, and we're going to hopefully get some beach time. And then July should be pretty quiet. In August, we start gearing up for packing her up and sending her off to school. So lots of changes coming.
It's exciting, though.
It is. And she's ready. I mean, she's absolutely ready. And I am as much as I can be. You know, I'm to the point where I'm not going to know how it's going to feel until she's there. Like you with your daughter in kindergarten, Tiffany. You get to the point where you go, okay, I'm as ready as I can be, and now it just has to happen, and I have to move from there. And there'll be good things I didn't expect, and some other things I didn't expect as well. But
we'll keep a journal close by, because surely there will be some future characters written up during these.
That's a great idea.
Oh yeah. Never waste those emotions, because they always play into.
Do you have a quick word of wisdom, Lisa, before we sign off, for somebody who really wants to write a book, that their story wants to be told? What is your
opposite direction?
What is your advice to them? How to get started?
I would say, I mean, I'm so blessed, because every one of my books has come at the invitation of a publisher saying, "Hey, we'd like to work with you," and that's I think I live under some kind of a magical rainbow. Special things happen, but the one thing I think I would say is, for words of wisdom, is just be true to the sound of your own voice, because I think that there's a lot of fear in writing that we have to measure up to, you know, an author that we admire, or somebody that, you know, has meant a lot to us. And mistakes that I've made in my writing have involved trying to emulate the sound of someone else's voice, or to sound too much like Pat Gone or Danielle Bean or Maria Johnson, who I really need to try to sound like is Lisa. And thank goodness for good editors. But not to fear the sound of your own voice in your writing, and also showing the warts, because I'll just say that the experience that I had with The Grace of Yes, the chapters that were the most challenging for me to write, to commit to paper and to sort of let those parts of myself show, those are kind of time and time again the ones that I'll have people come up and say, you know, this really meant a lot to me when you wrote this. So the fear that we feel there, and the trepidation, I mean, we never want to compromise the privacy of our loved ones in any way, but I think sharing those burdens that we have makes us real to our readers. And then just as far as fiction, you know, we're in the middle of the launch of books 3 and 4 of Time Travelers. If you don't already have them, I will beg you. This is me begging you, and you too, Facebook. Please go order Time Travelers for someone that you love, whether it's your kid or your school or your parish or your library. If we want books like that, we have to support them. So words of wisdom as far as fiction would be just to let the story live in your heart. Like Lisa said, that her characters become a part of her, and actually keep a notebook next to my bed, because so many times I will be, you know, really sound asleep, and all of a sudden God will send me a dream, and I will hear almost the exact dialogue that I need to work out a problem that I'm having. So begin and end with prayer. This is, you know, part of our gift that we can give to God in this way, and get it out before you start trying to fix it. Get it out, let it out there. So that's more than one word of wisdom, but
that's okay. That was good. Are the Time Travelers available for Kindle, Lisa, or just in print?
The Time Travelers books are only in print. Thankfully, they're very affordable right now. They're at a really good price, either at a Catholic bookstore on Amazon or at the publisher Franciscan Media. And I'll drop some links in our show notes there too. And normally, you know, I always would way rather plug Lisa Hess's books than my own. But I'm very committed to the fact that we need good fiction for our kids. Fiction that can be read in Catholic schools, that underscores, you know, the role that faith has to play in their lives, and the importance of things like the sacraments, and also, you know, the real issues that they deal with. And so I'm rooting for Time Travelers, because I want to see other series like this out there, and I want our publishers to see that there's a big demand for these kinds of books, because they will do it only if there is a demand. So there you go. my very self-serving self-plug.
We have a nice variety today because we have children's fiction and we also have women's fiction from Lisa Hess. So it was a perfect combination, I think.
So Tiffany, if people want to check out your writing, where can they find you online?
So my personal blog is lifeofacatholiclibrarian.com, and I'm there frequently. I have a little podcast that I've started from the blog, and I am also posting several times a week over there, and of course monthly at Catholic Mom.
Yay! So exciting. And Lisa, give us a shout out one more time for your two blogs where people can find you online.
Sure. I blog Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at the Porch Swing Chronicles, but that's www.l2hess.blogspot.com. Sorry, that's going to be in show notes, so I don't need to give you the address. And the other one is Organizing by Style, and there's tremendous overlap between Organizing by Style and Style Savvy on Catholic Mom. So if you only have time to read one, read Style Savvy on CatholicMom.com. And if you're interested in more, pardon me?
She's not being paid to tell you that.
No, I'm not. But it's a good place to start, and if you're interested in more, you can always click over to Organizing by Style. I'm there on Wednesdays and Thursdays.
If you need an antidote to the life-changing magic of tidying, Lisa Hess and Style Savvy is amazing. And you have all these boxes around here. You have helped me so much through my move, Lisa. So I think.
Oh, thank you. That's so wonderful to hear. I mean, all of that came about because I have to work very hard at being organized. So I figured, and I looked at kids who just were pained. They thought there was something wrong with them because they weren't organized, and quite often the adults around them treated them like there was something wrong with them. The passion that you were just expressing for time travelers, that's how I feel with Organizing by Style, because most people are organized, but we're not all traditionally organized. So finding that way that works for us so that we develop, my goal is not just organizational skills, and you can find a gazillion sites that will give you those, but confidence in your own organizational skills and trusting what God's given you as your skills and the way you approach things and going with those, playing to your strengths.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. Keep it coming. We need it.
Thank you for having me. CatholicMom.com has been such a wonderful experience for me. Barb sent me an email this morning about, would you be willing to write? I'm like, yes. I don't even need to read the other sentence, yes.
Well, thank you. On behalf of all of our readers, I thank you. And Tiffany, I'm going to put you on the spot because I didn't ask you, but will you close in prayer for us before we get out of here today?
Oh, sure. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Thank you, Lord, for this precious time that we had together. I pray that anyone who is listening is inspired by our words, and that we all together can pray for each other going forward so that we always feel surrounded by prayer and love. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Amen.
And the Son of the Holy Spirit.
Before we get out of here, I want to say the biggest humongous thank you in the world to Erica Marie, because without our wonderful Erica Marie, who you see here regularly on the Hangout, these would not be happening. And Erica, please know that we appreciate all of your hard work and everything that you do behind the scenes and in front of the cameras. We're about to take a summer break, and so you'll have a chance, if you missed any of the Hangouts, to go back and catch up on all of them. And we'll be back when the school year begins again with new guests and new opportunities to hang out with you. And until then, we invite you all summer long to come over to CatholicMom.com, where every day you'll find great things, all things faith, family, and fun to celebrate your life as a Catholic mom. So until next time, God bless and have a great summer.